Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to a new episode of the Mini Mirror Show. On this podcast, you'll get short, bite sized episodes about life philosophy, emotions, spirituality, and so much more. I'm your host, Amira Sookram, and the author of the Guilt Free Goals book. And on today's episode, I'm really excited to dive into something that is going to be part of chapter 1 of my new book, all about feelings-based living. Let's get started. So I want to dive a little bit more into life philosophy because this life philosophy that I'm going to talk about today has a lot to do with almost all of the ideas I have about emotions. So if you look back a few episodes about emotional waves, this is really a life philosophy that takes that idea a step further. So we have these waves that go up and down, and that is where we go through our emotions in life. We have our highs and we have our lows. So the first thing we learn about that is that life is not linear. When we think that we are always going to be getting better at things, we might exponentially be growing, but the idea is that we're not just growing in a linear fashion, and it's not just exponentially upwards. We're going to have slight dips where we go down, and we're going to go back up again. And these waves really help us kind of understand the idea that we don't always have to be growing and we don't always have to be getting better. We have this idea in our minds and in the way that we are raised that we always have to do better. This is a capitalist mindset where we are always expected to be growing. We're always expected to be making more money, to better our relationships, to just generally be improving. So I want to start this by giving you permission that you don't always have to be improving. And sometimes I think it actually is helpful to not always be improving because when we can go back to the beginning or the beginner mindset, we learn so much more. So in this week's episode, I want to introduce to you a life philosophy that I actually learned and then heard Marianne Williamson talk about it. And it's this idea that life is a spiral. Instead of it being a circular or a cycle of motion, and instead of it being just the wave up and down, we're actually moving through this spiral in life. So Marianne Williamson, in one of her books, said life is not a circle, but a spiral. Every life lesson that has ever been presented to you, which means everything you have ever been through, will come back again in some form until you learn it. And the way that I view this is really like a spiral staircase. So we are always just walking up this spiral staircase. And I always think of like Harry Potter movies when I think about this with like the stained glass walls. And we're just walking up this staircase. And every time we think we are in the same situation, because we're doing that circular motion, we're actually a level up, looking back down on our past self. So we are able to connect the dots over time when we're really self aware, when we are in touch with our emotions. We can see where one situation can trigger us or bring out the same reaction in us as we feel like we have already evolved. And it's like, why is this happening again? But it's really that we are that slight level up, looking back down on our past self. And because we're looking back down on our past self, we're able to reflect on the ways that we have grown. So maybe we are asking ourselves, oh, why am I doing this again? Or why am I in the same situation again? It's really this idea that we're not in the same place. We are more aware because we're recognizing the pattern. So instead of thinking of life as like a circle, I do view people and human behavior in their patterns. And because we are habitual creatures, because we live through these patterns, I take who I meet and the behaviors they show me, and that mirror being who I am and the behaviors I display at face value. So, because we're habitual creatures, that means that we are going to be walking up the spiral staircase continuously. Something that we have done already, we are more likely to repeat that behavior. If we have an emotional reaction to something, we are more likely to have that emotional reaction again when we brush up against the same thing. It's the way that our neurons fire. When we are doing some behavior and we react emotionally, the neurons are going to fire more easily the next time. And so, what became one survival response to a situation might become just our habitual behavior over time. And it really takes a lot of emotional literacy, emotional responsibility, and awareness to be able to change our behaviors. I'd also like to say that to know ourselves is really just to surrender to who we are and to stop viewing ourselves for who we necessarily want to be. Because when we only see ourselves as the person or the version of ourselves that is, quote unquote, the better or best version of ourselves, we are not acknowledging who we are and surrendering to our emotions currently. And this might be a hard emotional responsibility wake up call is to accept ourselves fully as we are, is really to love ourselves. So, as we're walking this spiral staircase, we are going to be coming up on the same situations, the same emotional reactions, the same responses within our body that we have almost always had. And with that being said, this means that there is literally no running from yourself. As far as you want to run, those emotional reactions will pop up. And they might not be happening within you, but they might happen in somebody else. So, like a student of yours, or your child, or a partner. And you will see these behaviors reflected to you, and some part of you is going to judge it and not love those behaviors and want to avoid those behaviors or blame the other person for being who they are instead of looking within and asking yourself, why did I attract this? So I think I want to leave the episode there. And we're probably going to return to this idea of a spiral staircase over and over again throughout this podcast, just because that is the spiral staircase, right? But I want to leave you with an insightful question. What behavior are you viewing in another person that is asking you to look within? So the next time you feel annoyed or irritated at somebody for acting a certain way, take a moment to look within and ask yourself, do I have these qualities? And if I have these qualities, how can I surrender to them and accept them about myself? Let's leave it there for today because that is a heavy topic. Thank you so much for watching this podcast. If you got to the end, leave a comment with a thumbs up just so that I know that you've seen this. And please like, share, subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Amira Sookram and follow my stories for daily gratitude polls. And lastly, check out my website because I have flow notes that go out every month with a free reflection worksheet that'll help you get in tune with your feelings and practice emotional literacy. That's it for this week. See you next Tuesday. Bye.